Markets recover from the day's low, but broader indices underperform. Nifty banks closed the day as the top sectoral gainer. LIC Chairman Siddhartha Mohanty expects VNB margins to sustain at around 20% and sees margins improving in Q4 on new product launches. Paytm Payments Bank floats RFP to external auditors. Sources say this RFP is for audit of compliance and KYC process. That's an NDTV Profit exclusive. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman blasts the opposition in the parliament, says that the Congress has put family first and brought the economy down to the fragile five. NDA emphasized a nation-first policy. PM Modi announces Bharat Ratna awardees. Former Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao as well as Chaudhry Charan Singh will be conferred along with agricultural scientist Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. Hello and welcome. You're watching The Reporter on NDTV Profit. I'm your host Pallavi Nahata, and as always on today's show, we aim to bring to you market news along with national and international newsmakers. Now, before we move on with the show, let's see how markets have fared today. Benchmark indices came off the day's low and ended range-bound. My colleague Tamanna Inamdar joins us for a quick market check. Tamanna, how did the markets fare today?
The market close on Friday was in the green, which would have been something that not everyone would have predicted start of the day or at least mid-morning, where you saw a bit of a dive. But overall, a range-bound day, which saw the Nifty ending at the 21,782 mark. The Sensex also up not even 0.5%. The big story, of course, through the day was the afternoon jump up in the Bank Nifty, which has closed about 1.5% up. In fact, the Bank Nifty, after having quite a poor week, has ended the week well. I just want to quickly pull up a weekly chart of the Nifty, Sensex and the Bank Nifty to get you a sense of how this entire week has been. And for the Nifty, you've been marginally down. Very, very tepid week, I would say. You started off well, but not too much happening after that. Not too much action overall in the Bank Nifty as well. That's why I'm saying good recovery today. Week on week, the Bank Nifty was about 2% down. So if one part of the story, or one side of the story was the Bank Nifty, the other side of the story today is how the broader market seemed to crack. In fact, I would say the small cap and mid cap indices recovered from the worst levels of the day. The Nifty mid cap has ended up closing about 1% down, but was definitely worse off, about 1.5%, nearly 2% down at some point. The small cap index has also seen a bit of a crack, and the culprits here seem to be public sector run stocks. One set of companies which have been having a great time today were dumped by investors. Some of it is based on what their results look like, and the biggest culprit there is PFC. The guidance outlook for this company has been reduced quite dramatically. That was revealed in the con call by the management the night before, and that's why you've seen an 8.5% drop. REC follows in the footsteps, but overall a bout of weakness there in public sector stocks. The trend this entire week has been action depending on corporate results, and that's likely to continue next week as well as we head towards the close of quarterly result season.
And with that, it's time for an NDTV Profit exclusive, an update on the Paytm Payments Bank saga. The bank has now floated an RFP to external auditors. We have my colleague Pragati Oberoi joining us with more on this. Pragati, what have you been picking up?
We have an NDTV Profit exclusive for you. Sources have communicated to us that Paytm Payments Bank has floated an RFP. And now RFP stands for Request for Proposal. Paytm Payments Bank has floated this RFP to external auditors specifically. Now this RFP has been floated on a restricted basis. This means that this RFP is not available in public domain. Now the idea behind floating this RFP coming from Paytm Payments Bank is that it is for audit of compliance and the KYC processes. Sources have also told us that by floating this RFP, the bank wants to indicate or show to the RBI that it was compliant all throughout. We must remember that when RBI imposed restrictions on Paytm Payments Bank and came out with a circular on 31st January, the RBI said that it had found Paytm Payments Bank persistently non-compliant and booked it for material supervisory concerns. But now, with the floating of this RFP, Paytm Payments Bank is trying to take an action against what has been imposed by RBI. Stay tuned for more updates.
Thanks a lot for that, Pragati. Now, moving on to another related piece of information. The Employees Provident Fund organization has said that it will stop accepting claims linked to Paytm Payments Bank Limited accounts from February the 23rd. My colleague Janani Janardhanan joins us with more on this. Janani, what does this mean for Paytm Payments Bank and its customers?
The Employees Provident Fund organization is going to halt payments for the settlement in accounts that are coming from the Paytm Payments Bank. Now, this is on the back of the regulatory curbs imposed by the RBI. And what we're getting to hear so far is that, Paytm Payments Bank linked deposit and credit transactions will be stopped. Now, this is via a circular that was issued by the EPFO to its field officers, asking them that in line with the RBI's restrictive actions, that this must be carried out. The date that this comes into effect is most important. That is going to be from the 23rd of February. That still is quite a bit of time. And also we've been noticing that the field officials have been noted that this should be made more public, more awareness should be raised on the subject. And it also gains a lot of importance, considering that it's been less than a year since, Paytm Payments Bank was even given the approval for settlement. This dates back to November 2023, when Airtel Payments Bank and Paytm Payments Bank were given the approval to be used for settlement purposes. Now, the latest we've been reporting at NDTV has been that independent director and board member Manju Agarwal also resigned with effect of 1st February. So there doesn't seem to be any let up on what's happening currently at Paytm Payments Bank, but we'll bring you more on that as we know further.
We expect our margins to improve in the fourth quarter on the back of new product launches. Now, that's according to Siddhartha Mohanty, chairman of LIC, while he was in conversation with my colleague Sajit Manghat. He added that the next quarter is going to be LIC's time and that the insurance major is focusing on alternate distribution models. Let's listen into a slice of that conversation.
Whatever commitment we made post-listing, we are in line with achieving our commitment, and much more than that we are delivering. And particularly if you see, LIC was traditionally par-dominated product was there. And there has been directional change in our approach to business, and we have good product mix. We have introduced good non-par products, which not only gives margin but also takes care of customer, gives competitive return in the market, because when we design anything, focus is always on customer. All others will come next, because customer is the biggest stakeholder for us. So recently, if you see, we have launched one product, Jivan Utsav, and that has also given good margin during last quarter, Q3. And that product is designed in such a manner that takes care of all the stakeholders. Customers first, then distribution, intermediaries, their compensation, and also shareholder margin. So other products also we have launched recently, Jivan Dhara 2. Recently we launched ULIP plan, LIC's Index Plus. Yeah. So all these products keeping in mind customers' need as well as shareholders' interest. This year will be huge growth will be there.
And that's what is giving you confidence that the VNBs will be...
Because you see, first 2 quarters, we had some stress.
Yes.
Q1 and Q2. Q3 and Q4 will be LIC's time. You see, if I share one data, actually, we made a study, new agents which we recruit. Every year, we recruit more than 1 lakh agents. Out of that, you will find if age-wise classification, if you do, more than 48-49% agents, they are millennials. So we are adding youngsters to our distribution channel. Old agents are there because agency is one profession where nobody retires. Agents don't retire. As long as they continue, they get gratuity also. They have term insurance, various benefits are there. Many agents are totally full-time agents. So there are senior agents, but new agents are regularly added.
Now, moving on, one of the stocks in focus in today's trade was Zomato. The stock closed over 3% higher after analysts hiked target price after the company's earnings came out. My colleague Mahima joins us with more. Mahima, what are brokerages saying on the stock?
Right. So Zomato touched an intraday high of 5% today as brokerages have maintained positive calls on the company after their net profit for Q3 jumped nearly fourfold. Let's just discuss what the brokerages are saying. First one is Jefferies. Jefferies has maintained a buy on Zomato and it has hiked its target price to 205 from 190, and it has also raised its adjusted EBITDA by 4 to 10%. Now then we have Nomura, which has again upgraded its rating from reduced to add and hiked the target price to 180 from 75, which is nearly doubled, and it also expects its food delivery to deliver 18 to 25% year-on-year growth. Then we have HSBC, which is again maintained a buy and raised its target price to 163 from 150. Then we have Motilal Oswal, which has also raised its target price to 170, implying an upside potential of 18%, and it expects Zomato to deliver a strong 70% year-on-year growth in FY24. We have Morgan Stanley also, which has maintained an overrate and raised its target price to 150 from 140 with an upside potential of 7%. And lastly, we have Bank of America, which has maintained a buy rating and raised the target price to 172 from 145. So all these brokerages have raised their target price considering the current Q3 earnings that the Zomato posted.
Thanks a lot for that. Now, in today's Parliament session, Nirmala Sitharaman discussed the white paper that was laid out by the government yesterday. It details some of what the government has done during the course of the past decade, pulling out the Indian economy from the fragile five and pushing it to among the top performing economies globally. She goes on to say that if the government handles situations with sincerity, transparency and putting the nation first, results are there for everybody to see. Listen in.
Both the decades suffered because of some serious global crisis. They are stark stories of how, when you have a crisis, and how a government with a feeling of the nation will have to pull the economy up in spite of it getting affected by such a stark, very difficult, challenging crisis. 10 years of one government with some crisis and 10 years of a different government with a different crisis. The comparison shown in this white paper clearly says how, if the government handles it with true sincerity, transparency, and putting the nation first, the results are there for everybody to see. Equally, when you don't put the nation first, when you put your first family first, and when you have other consideration than transparency, the results are out there for you to see. When the results are out there for you to see. So, what happened after 2008, when there was a global financial crisis, and what happened post the COVID, shows clearly that if the intent of the government is sincere, if niyat और नियम दोनों सही है तो अच्छा रिजल्ट मिलेगा. जब आपके नियत साफ नहीं है और आपके कार्रवाई भी साफ नहीं है, देश को इतना गंभीर अवस्था में छोड़कर आप चले गए उसको सही करने में 10 साल माननीय मुख्य प्रधानमंत्री जी मोदी जी का उनके डेडिकेशन के वजह से आज देश उभर कर आ रही है.
The demand by NBFCs to become more like banks is uncharacteristic. That's according to RBI Deputy Governor Rajeshwar Rao while speaking at an event organized by the CII. He further distinguished between regulatory implications between a bank and an NBFC. He added how not letting an NBFC accept public deposits helps them have easy entry and exit barriers. Listen to what he had to say.
In a nutshell, what I would like to emphasize is that the regulations for NBFCs, especially in the upper layer, are much more calibrated, but are certainly not on par with the regulations applicable to the banks. Now, there is always that perennial debate which goes on whether NBFCs should be allowed to accept public deposits. This is a second issue which I would like to discuss here. While the perception that the scale-based regulatory framework has made regulations of banks more bank-like, there have also been intermittent demands that NBFCs should be allowed to accept public deposits. Let me emphasize that the non-acceptance of public deposits by NBFCs is one area which has actually provided regulatory comfort to RBI to have lower entry barriers for the NBFCs, allow them to specialize in any sector of their choice and have lower exit barriers to wind up their business. Acceptance of deposit in whatever manner and form necessitates existence of a macro-financial safety net, including deposit insurance and central bank liquidity backstops. These safety nets come with increased regulatory rigor and intense supervisory oversight. The NBFCs have evolved as niche companies serving specific economic functions, and it is uncharacteristic for them to demand becoming like a bank.
And with that, it's time to slip into a very short break. But stay tuned, we have a lot more lined up for you on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The Reporter on NDTV Profit. Now, the Delhi High Court has acknowledged a petition challenging the Bar Council of India's decision, which permitted foreign law firms to operate in India. My colleague Charu Singh joins us with more information on this. Hi, Charu.
Hi, Pallavi. So, the Bar Council of India came out with these rules to basically regulate the foreign lawyers and the foreign firms much earlier. These are the 2022 rules, but they were challenged before the Delhi High Court, citing various grounds, And in today's hearing, the Delhi High Court agreed to hear the case and issued a notice to the central government as well as the Bar Council of India. Now, what are these grounds on which this notification, these rules have been challenged? Number one is that there was a Supreme Court ruling of 2018, the A.K. Balaji's case, where the Madras High Court had first said that the foreign lawyers and foreign firms cannot operate in India, and then the Supreme Court upheld that decision but made certain changes in it, saying that they could practice in a fly-in, fly-out basis. That is, for some arbitration and IP-related matters, they could come in, do some work, and then fly out again. And another ground on which this has been challenged is the reciprocity principle. They are saying that the countries from which the lawyers are going to come and practice in India might not necessarily allow Indian lawyers to go and practice there. So it might not be in the best interest of the Indian legal fraternity. However, there's some debate about that. Other than that, there is another ground which says that the entire rules are basically against the Advocates Act of 1961, which state that for an advocate to be able to practice in India, he or she needs to be registered as per the Advocates Act 1961. And it is yet to be seen how this basically plays out. Now the hearing has been adjourned to the end of March, and let's see how it plays out.
Thanks a lot for that, Charu. Now, the Supreme Court is all set to hear pleas filed by multiple Indian companies against Google's user choice billing policy. Let's listen to what my colleague Varun has to say, explaining what's happening.
Yeah, hi Pallavi. Rightly said that the top court has agreed to hear pleas filed by Indian companies and startups against Google's user choice billing policy. However, as of now, the court has refused to pass an interim order protecting these companies from getting delisted from the Google Play Store. A quick primer on Google's UCB. Under this billing policy, a service fee ranging from 11% to 26% is imposed on the app developers whenever a paid app is downloaded from the Play Store or any in-app purchases are made. Now, last month, a division bench of the Madras High Court had dismissed these appeals challenging Google's new billing policy. The dismissal affirmed an order of a single judge which came out in August last year. The High Court had said that the matter falls under the jurisdiction of the Competition Commission of India, which offers a more comprehensive remedy while dealing with issues pertaining to market correction. The court had also directed Google not to delist the apps of these companies until the matter was decided upon finally. Now, presently, we don't have a date as to when the top court will take up these matters, but we do know for sure that these will be taken up soon.
Thanks a lot for that, Varun. Now, moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today announced that former Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao as well as Chaudhry Charan Singh will be conferred the prestigious Bharat Ratna. PM Modi also announced that his government is conferring the nation's highest civilian award to agricultural scientist Dr. M.S. Swaminathan as well. In another decision by the state government, Uttarakhand government becomes the first state to table a uniform civil code bill in the assembly. It's a uniform set of rules that will govern marriage, divorce, live-in relationships, property and inheritance rights. My colleague Malika explains to us the key proposals and some of the controversial proposals in the bill. Let's have a look.
What is the proposed UCC law of Uttarakhand? UCC stands for Uniform Civil Code, one uniform civil code for all. In a diverse country like India, where religious sentiments stand at the forefront of personal identities, the imposition of a pan-India UCC will take time. However, the Uttarakhand government has tabled a uniform civil code for the state in the assembly, becoming the first state in the country to do so. Chief Minister of Uttarakhand Pushkar Singh Dhami said that the proposed UCC will not only be for the good of all the sections, but also align with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat. NDTV reported that a government-appointed panel led by retired Supreme Court Judge Ranjana Prakash Desai has drafted a 4-volume, 749-page report containing several recommendations. The Uttarakhand Assembly will discuss these recommendations during the special 4-day Assembly session, which began on the 6th of February. Therefore, what are the salient features of the UCC in the proposed bill? Let's go one by one. Complete ban on polygamy and child marriage. A standardized marriageable age for girls across all faiths. A uniform process for divorce. Inheritance rights. Uniform divorce laws and procedures. Facilitating pursuit of education for girls before marriage. Mandatory registration of marriages. Adoption rights to everyone, including Muslim women. Banned practices such as halala and iddat, which are Islamic practices a woman must go through after a divorce or the death of the husband. Equal property rights for sons and daughters. Registration of live-in relationships under the law. Equal treatment for adopted and biologically born children. Equal property rights for the spouse, children and parents in case of death. Uttarakhand will become the first state of independent India to adopt the UCC, following the footsteps of Goa, where it has been operational since the days of Portuguese rule. For more such updates, stay tuned to NDTV Profit.
Well, that's all we have for you on this edition of The Reporter, but stay tuned to NDTV Profit for more news and updates coming up.